What do you think? Would you like to have both? None? One or the other? Let us know on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Who needs to have a breakout from the coaching ranks at the University of Oklahoma? Let's discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. I almost said every single year, but I mean, definitely do it every year, but make sure it's every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to all the everydayers. We appreciate you all showing up in the YouTube chat, hitting us up on the social media accounts as well at Locked On Sooners, wherever you like to do your social media stuff. So Jay, you were asking this question before we started recording. Which coach needs to have a breakout season in 2025? And I'm going to give the floor to you on this one first. Who needs to break out in your mind?
Yeah, when you look at the way last season went, there's a few coaches that need some good luck and good fortune. And to be honest, the coach that needs to break out the most, unfortunately, is Emmett Jones. And I say that because the way last year went with all the injuries, him having to play a bunch of young players, you were wondering just how ready a lot of these guys were. Now, granted, there was way more things happening in the environment to cause these issues, but right now fans are not at the highest of high when it comes to EJ, and especially with recruiting with 2026, things are kind of weird. Trying to remind everybody, though, that your recruits for the 2026 season really don't have that big of an impact until 2028 when they're redshirt freshmen and true sophomores. So we're kind of, putting a lot of carts before the horse. We've got 3 years before we actually really be thinking about these kids, but I digress. Last season, and then you having the exodus you had, EJ now has to go back into the well and show us that his development is still there with these players. Granted, I think that he's going to be fine. I think that we'll see Zion Kearney really be the player that pops. It shows heavy development for him because he's been able to show with transfers. He can pick the right transfers and got the good ideas and bring them in, and they do well. But what does he have to show for himself on a player that he recruited in and he basically developed as a freshman? He didn't really have anybody yet. And now I think that a big year from Zion Kearney will give him that, because Jaden Gibson was his. He ain't healthy. So we don't know if he's healthy or not. He looks it, but we have to wait and see he hits the field. We won't count our chickens before they hatch. We got to see one of these players pop for him, and the question is going to be, can it be Zion Kearney or even Elijah Thomas, or even go down the list of other wide receivers he's recruited? Somebody's got to pop to help him out. I think that's the coach probably the most.
Yeah, it looked like things were heading in a really strong direction after that 2023 season, right? And then everybody got hurt, banged up, nobody could stay on the field, and you didn't see enough development out of the true freshman class that had Kearney and Ivan Carrion, Zion Reagans, and KJ Daniels. You just didn't see anybody really develop much throughout the year. Still really, really difficult circumstances for everybody involved on that offense. The offensive line was not as good as it needed to be. The quarterback wasn't as good as it needed to be. You could barely run the ball. And that was going to make it really, really difficult for those true freshman wide receivers to stand out. But you would have expected maybe with somebody to find some opportunities, because no disrespect to JJ Hester or Brennan Thompson, but they just weren't it, man. They just didn't do enough for you. But they were just true freshmen. Give it time. Develop. It's a developmental game. So we say it all the time here on the show. So I'll be curious to see how those guys look in year 2 now. And everybody's praising Zion Kearney right now. You can see some of the tools. If you go back and watch some of his work last year, you can see that there's something to work with there, and there's something to be excited about. Now it's a matter of putting it on the field and seeing that develop. If they can have that bounce back year, then I think everybody will feel a little bit more encouraged about the direction of Oklahoma football, because right now it's been kind of rough. The other position that's been kind of rough at, it's tight end. And Joe John Finley has struggled on the recruiting trail for whatever reason, has had a hard time landing blue chip tight ends at Oklahoma. Now, depending on where you look, Tyler Ruxer is a blue chip tight end. I think he had a big jump in the On3 Rivals update. So that, to me, that's a big addition. But then you got to see him and Trynae Washington. come to fruition. And it may not be this year, but if they can get something productive out of the tight end position this year, even if it's the transfer guys, then I think it'll be a little bit encouraging. I know, again, last year was not the best circumstances for anybody, but he did find a good tight end in Bauer Sharp, at least somebody that could have been better, I think, given a situation where he wasn't the number one option in the passing game like he was.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to scream that from the top of the mountain, that in the hilltop or wherever, the ant hill that I'm on. It doesn't matter. I'm going to scream it. I do believe that Bauer Sharp will be really good for this team this year if he was not your number one option. And that's kind of how it is. He'll be at LSU. He'll be their second option at tight end. And I think he's going to be a really good contributor. He's going to be one that's going to go out there and he's going to put up some decent numbers that's needed. He's going to put enough numbers up to be considerable. He's very athletic. And if you can get him in the proper space, dude, he could be nasty. But at the same time, one of the problems you run into is you don't want him running you don't want all the plays running through him. That's to me where the struggle really hits the hardest.
Yeah. Yeah. So you go back to Braden Willis in 2022 and that's a dude that sings Joe John Finley's praises.
Yeah, he really does.
And he had a breakout year that 2022 season. So, and it got him drafted. I mean, let's not sleep on that. Braden Willis was a guy that was kind of a rotational guy, sat for the most part behind, Jeremiah Hall. There were some thoughts that maybe Mikey Henderson might end up taking his job at one point, or at least taking the H-back role at one point. And then Braden Willis emerges and he's the tight end one in 2022 and has a huge year. He has like 500 yards and half a dozen touchdowns or something like that, and has a great year for Oklahoma. And now he's on a San Francisco 49ers team that knows how to use the tight ends.
Yep.
And somebody that could go and thrive with the Niners. So listen, I think Joe John Finley has had a little bit of bad luck like EJ has with the injuries to Kaden Helms and Caden McIntyre. Now Kaden Helms is healthy. Brent Venables is singing his praises. If we start to see Kaden Helms produce on the field, that could potentially change the narrative surrounding Oklahoma and the tight end position and Oklahoma and Joe John Finley.
Yeah. And the bounce back will be big for him if he can get this to happen. I think that will probably be the one that will shatter the earth if you got a good bounce back at the tight end spot and you saw some dudes show up. I'm still telling you, I'm still very high on Trynae Washington, and I think, especially at his size, he's already like 240 as a true freshman. It's freaking huge. I think that he can be something I think he can contribute like crazy as a true freshman this year. Even if you don't, BV has been hyping Kaden Helms, and we think that he could pop off potentially. As long as he's healthy, he should be able to do it. K. McIntyre, similarly. But I think Trynae Washington might be the one that helps Joe John win a little bit more of graces from the fan base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even if it's not this year for Trynae Washington, but we see him have a strong season in 2026 as a true sophomore, I think that would show, okay, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's looking at. He just needed some of these guys to stay healthy. And I think we'd feel a little bit better about it if Kaden Helms had been producing or playing each of the last 2 years, but he hasn't been able to. But that's a guy that, again, was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. And if he's ready to take that step this year, I think it'll go a long way to Oklahoma recruiting the tight end position across the country. But again, they got a good one in Tyler Ruxer. They got another good one in who's the kid out of Frisco that I'm blanking on?
You're talking about Ryder Mix?
Yes, thank you, Ryder Mix. The long committed to Oklahoma Ryder Mix tight end. So that's two really good tight ends that Oklahoma's got committed in 2026 that, again, changing narratives. Interesting happenings over the weekend as Michigan scheduled an overseas game. How might that impact Oklahoma, and would you? Coming up on Locked On Sooners.